So I'm only going to be discussing hour 1 minute 4, 2 minutes of the video here. This is a claim of where the men and women were murdered. It's interesting, but I'm not in agreement with it, and so I'm just going to discuss this one issue with the women. But you should watch the whole video. It's a good video. I just don't agree with it.
Here is where the attack took place, approximately. Not that many people there were doing the attacking, so we know a lot of the women and children tried to run away. They ran up this hill to the east, they ran up this hill to the north, and they ran up along the trail to where their grandfather was, lying in the wagon, probably right about here. And you can see this trail. The Old Spanish Trail, the California Trail. To this day, you can follow this all the way up to Hamlin's Ranch. So, that is my story.
Okay, the Carlton Report says 2,880 yards. So this is the general area where the women and children were. And if we move this line around, you don't get to go very far, and you have to stay on the road, which has to be where this gully is. I don't believe this is road. I believe this is the contour of the original ditch along which they're described being slaughtered. This road may or may not be the original California road, but this area here has to be the natural contour. And I think all of this has been plowed over. So it's not accurate to say that the women were here and then people went running up here to a wagon. Let's go to the Carlton Report. So you can get a copy like this off of eBay for 10 bucks or so. I also purchased this off of eBay. It might have been for Manetta Henry, but it's 1902. Congress issued a publication of the Carlton Report in 1902. And so I'm going to read from this. To the next point, also marked by a similar grave made by Captain Campbell, and where the women and children were butchered, a point identified from their bones and clothing having been found near it, is 1 mile, 1,135 yards, which translates to 2,880 yards. Yes, well, 1882. I had a 91 and a 77, but I sold them. This was the best of the three. I first heard one gun, then a volley at once followed. McMurdy and McKnight stopped their teams at once, for they were ordered by Higbee, same as I was, to help kill all the sick and wounded who were in the wagons, to do it as soon as they heard the guns of the troops, which were 3/8 of a mile behind. McMurdy was in front. His wagon was mostly loaded with the arms and small children. McMurdy and Knight got out of their wagons. Each one had a rifle. McMurdy went up to Knight's wagon, where the sick and wounded were, and raised his rifle to his shoulder and said, O Lord my God, receive their spirits, for it is in thy kingdom that... O Lord my God, receive their spirits. It is for thy kingdom that I do this. He then shot a man who was lying with his head on another man's breast. The ball killed both men. I also went up to the wagon intending to do my part of the killing. I drew my pistol and cocked it, but somehow it went off prematurely, and I shot McMurdy across the thigh, my pistol ball cutting his buckskin pants. McMurdy turned to me and said, Brother Lee, keep cool. You are excited. You came very near killing me. Keep cool. There is no reason for being excited. And then a 14-year-old boy comes up, and his skull is crushed, and so on. So I'll photograph some of this, and you can read it all, but there's no mention of people running 1,000 feet north to a wagon with an uncle in it. And the survey was done line of sight by Prince from where the monument was, so when we shoot this line, we're within some feet. of where the event took place. So the point is that this area gives us the number. It cannot be down here. And I see no indication of a wagon up here with people running this way. The sequence of the wagons and where John D. Lee is standing and where the women and children are is in a compact form. There's no indication of any wagon 1,000 feet north of where all these murders were taking place. Whatever wagon is being referred to would have to be part of this massacre, and so by necessity it would be bunched with the rest of the other wagons and John D. Lee and the people that are going to be murdered. Now, you just can't have that number. There's nothing to indicate that. I don't know what the reference is. That's a lot of time. So now I'll go to Gibbs, 1910. So as good as scholars, people like Juanita Brooks and Will Bagley are, they've made an error, and the error is using this map that Joshia Gibbs created, having committed the error of listening to these two, Benjamin and Joseph Platt. Now, it was Joseph that lived with John D. Lee at the time of the massacre. But in my opinion, and I can't prove this, he's giving intentionally erroneous information to Gibbs. The error is that he places everyone in here. So if we take this map as being accurate, right up in here is where the Mormon camp was. And these are the hills, either where the Indians are, or there's a little hill just north, near one of these southernmost homes here. This isn't where it took place. It took place up here. And we know this from the Prince map that gives us the numbers that we must use to find the truth, which gives us the truth with the women. The speaker is almost correct in the location. He's erroneous, in my opinion, in saying there was a wagon over 1,000 feet up the road. But Juanita Brooks publishes this. Will Bagley uses this. Juanita Brooks also uses the Prince map on the inside cover and back cover of her book. But that information clashes with this information. But the clashing is caused by error here. If we take those numbers of Prince and we just do what we've done, which is what I was doing back in 2006, and I was so confused because I'm looking at this stuff, or I'm looking here. Let's just go a little south. And that area is where the men were murdered. Now, the only thing we're touching on today is this issue with the women. The speaker, I'm leaving this out, I'm just mentioning it, says that the men's massacre was over here, and that they were on the old Spanish Trail. And then the road came across this way. I'm not buying that. I believe it all came down this way. There's a rock cairn over here. It's interesting, but that's just not the issue today. I'm going to address that in a separate video. So this is where the men were murdered. 3/8 of a mile further north is where we're looking at the women. Okay. And that, in my opinion, are the proper locations. See, the Spanish Trail came down this way, but the California Road was cut, I believe, by the Mormon Battalion in 1850, as I recall. That road was cut because it was no longer part of the Spanish Trail. Sorry about that phone. And if you're cutting a new road, you're not going to follow the old road. I just don't believe they went way down here and then came back in, which is what you have to do. This is where the Spanish Trail came down this way. I'm not sure if it was which side it was on. But if you're coming down from Hamblin's, there's no reason to go all the way back over here, come down here, and then you come back out to get to Mountain Meadows. What makes sense is you would come down this way. You would have to come out here because you're following the flattest possible path, and you would come right down through here. And I've traced that on a separate video. Pieces of the road, I believe, I can't prove it, it's just what I believe, are traces of the old California road. And a couple of them, if you were to go on Google Earth now, are obliterated because they did some plowing in here and lost a little bit of that road. But this makes more sense because time is consuming and time is labor. And if you can knock a half a mile off, that's what you're going to do. You wouldn't be walking out like this and coming back over like this. I'm exaggerating just to make a point.